WJR.
This is The Big Story on News Talk 760 WJR. Now, here's Lloyd Jackson.
And I'd like to welcome back to the studios of WJR and The Big Story, Detroit Police Chief Ella Bully-Cummings. Chief, thank you so much for coming back in. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Once again, I mean, and I really appreciate it tonight, Chief, because I know you were just getting back from out of town and the Officer of the Year that I'm sure you're very proud of here from the city of Detroit.
Oh, absolutely. It's probably the greatest prestige for police officers in the country. Our officer, Roy Gilbert, was awarded the 2007 Parade Magazine International Association of Chiefs of Police Officer of the Year. So it's a tremendous compliment on the work that our men and women do here in the city of Detroit. And yes, we walked away with the grand prize.
Well, now let our listeners know what the officer does and why he was nominated for this prize.
Well, last year in December, we had an incident in the Western District where there was a vehicle that was carjacked. And Officer John McKee and Officer Roy Gilbert were working together. And they observed the car, and so they decided to effect a traffic stop, but the individual wouldn't stop. They eventually bailed out of the car, and Officer Gilbert, who was riding as the passenger, jumped out of the car and engaged in a foot chase. Well, Officer McKee, who was driving, followed behind the individual, and he caught up with him before Officer Gilbert. And Officer McKee got out of the car, and the person attempted to jump over a fence, and Officer McKee was able to bring him down, even though he was probably twice his size. Well, this individual pulled a gun out and shot Officer McKee in the face.
Oh, man.
And the bullet ended up near his carotid artery. It severed off a part of his tongue. And so Officer Gilbert was able to get there quickly, and, he shot a volley of rounds at the perpetrator. And the perpetrator shot him. And someone was looking out for him upstairs, because,
Absolutely.
and Officer McKee too.
Yes.
Because the bullet did not enter Officer Gilbert. It hit a cell phone and deflected.
Okay.
The individual was able to get another round off and shot Officer McKee in the stomach. And Officer Gilbert was eventually able to take him down. Officer McKee is a very, very lucky individual. I know that night that we went to the hospital, the doctors didn't even think he would make it. But, he has 3 children and a wife, and at that time he had pretty much a newborn baby. And his will to live and rebound was just so strong that his recovery was remarkable. But Officer Gilbert, we submitted the information on what happened to the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And they get this information from across the country about the different things that officers do, and he was selected.
You know what, Chief, and we know about Officer Gilbert, and we're very proud of him here in the city of Detroit, but there are so many other officers who do the same thing day in and day out that we don't necessarily hear about all the time.
No, you don't, and that's why when citizens do write me or stop me and they tell me about a tremendous encounter that they had with our officers, I thank them, because our officers don't hear thank you enough, and they don't hear people saying we really do appreciate what you're doing as often as they should. When things go wrong, people always point the finger at the police department and our officers. And I try very hard to let them know that I, for one, as their leader, I'm grateful for the work that they do. And there are many citizens out there that appreciate the officers, too.
If you have a question for Detroit Police Chief Ella Bully-Cummings, please give us a call at 800-859-0WJR, 800-859-0957. And before we get to the call, Chief, you have a pamphlet there that you passed out to some of your colleagues while you were out of town. Now, where was this in Phoenix? Was this in Arizona?
No, this was it was a combined conference. It
Okay.
was the Major City Chiefs of Police, which are the 63 major cities in the United States and Canada, but it was also the annual conference for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. So they had thousands, and I mean thousands of law enforcement personnel in attendance at this conference. But at the Major City Chiefs Roundtable, we have an opportunity to share new initiatives and things that we're doing in our respective cities to combat crime. and to talk about the collaborations that we have with the community, with other agencies. And what we try and do is share information. And one of the brochures that I took this time, and we're about to begin launching it here in the city of Detroit, is a crime victim and family survivors guide. And it's law enforcement's response to victims of homicide. And when I say victims, there's more than one victim when a homicide occurs. It's the family that's left behind.
Absolutely.
And they are true victims. And they don't understand the process. And so hopefully this booklet will help them through that process, because at the time they're going through a very traumatic time in their life. And so they need something that will explain the homicide, the investigative process, the prosecutor's role, the court's role, how to get back a loved one's property, who's responsible for making the notification. It also provides them with information on where to get assistance for burial, and how, there's even information in here because a lot of people may not have transportation to and from court to attend the proceedings. So it's a very informative guide, and we're going to make sure that the family is given one of these guides within 24 hours. But the one thing that it really does, most families don't understand that they need to designate one person. Because if we have a homicide that occurs, 10 and 20 members of the family call.
Absolutely. Which
distracts the officer from being able to investigate the case. And then when that happens, the next thing is they file a complaint with me about the lack of response. And then I have to expend more manpower to have that investigated. So one of the things that we ask is identify one family member to be the liaison between the department and the family.
800-859-0WJR, 800-859-0957. If you are a citizen of the city of Detroit, if you have a business in the city of Detroit, and there is an issue that you need to have addressed by the police chief, she is here for you to talk to at 800-859-0WJR. Let's go to the phone lines and talk to Dorothy from Detroit. And Dorothy, you have a question for the chief.
Yes, I live on Glenfield, and I do appreciate the police because I'm married to a retired one who chose not to leave the city like so many. And we have a problem. We have got a group of young thugs that have moved onto Glenfield. And since they've moved in, we've had cars stolen, 4 tires removed from cars and yards, 4 houses burned like almost across the street from me. The other night, they tried to break in on a woman who lives alone. They took the bulbs out of her lights. I told them last night when they came over to my house that they have to go to the meeting with me that we have at Samaritan. I went there this month on the first Wednesday, and I did, mention to them that these kids are on the porch during school hours, and I'm not sure they're even old enough to be out of school. But the officer did tell me that if it's their porch, then they belong there. They can't go up and do anything. But my question is, what do we do with them? How do we get help?
Well, Dorothy, thank you very, very much. One of the ways is giving me the information, and probably the best way is attending your community relations meetings, because you have an opportunity to meet the commanding officer of the district as well as his or her command staff and the officers that make up that particular district. I have taken notes. One of the things, Lloyd, that I did want to talk about, and it's not, I don't want to call it a new initiative, but we've had to kind of focus, right now we're in a hiring mode, and we're trying to best utilize the person power that we have on the police department.
Are we talking about this?
Operation Night Owl.
Can we just hold on that 1 second? We're going to take a break and go to the Big 7 traffic and find out what's going on the roads. We'll come back and talk about that because that's a very important initiative.